Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
Boom! This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
Mr. Back!
You're listening to Making Tracks. I'm Mark Newbold, and joining me today as we sit in the... would you describe this as palatial? You said gourmanistic.
I did say it's gourmanesque, actually, yeah. Gourmanesque, yes, we are sat in the corner of a very gourmanesque bar cafe at the Hilton Metropole in Birmingham on the NEC complex.
Yes, exactly that. This is episode 235, and we are here...
At Starfury Invasion.
Starfury Invasion. It's been a rather good weekend. I've really enjoyed it. It's Sunday morning, so we're about to go in and do all the Sunday talks in a bit.
Yes.
It doesn't start till noon, really, so there's autographs and photographs and all that stuff happening today. We had a couple of Fanthas here yesterday. We had Paul and John here yesterday. We've got Paul McHugh. We've got Matt's on his way. She'll be here any minute. How's it been for you? Because obviously you're here with the Legion this weekend.
So Starfury is buying rights, and I think we've talked about this before when we've... announced various people attending that, like Diego Luna. It's amazing and unique in the fact that it's a convention in a format that hasn't really changed in 30 years, really.
Comfortably 30 years
since Sean started doing it.
Yeah.
So it's a little, for some of the members, they've kind of were like, well, this is quite cool and quite nice, and for others are like, I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it all kind of comes down to like your perspective. I really like it because it's really relaxed.
Yeah.
And the staff have been absolutely wonderful. Have been very accommodating to, like, both for Rebel Legion, Fiverr First, and Fantha Tracks.
Yes, very much.
You know, originally we weren't supposed to be getting access to the main hall, but like they're like, by all means, come and sit in. And the nice thing about the main hall is, as you just said, it starts at 12 o'clock. The panels run back to back.
Yep.
And you just kind of come in and come out and drift, you know, so you don't have to be there and fight for your seat for the whole day. It's like, it's very relaxed.
And it feels like the guests are very aware of the way it's run.
Yes, I think so. I think they've obviously been briefed really well. And I think what is really quite nice is that all throughout the staff are very good. They say you can take still photos, but no video, no audio recording.
Yeah.
So it means that the guests can be relaxed, and I wouldn't say go off script, as it were, but it allows them to not necessarily have to follow the kind of the PR spiel
line,
from maybe what they've had to do for press junkets and other panels and stuff.
And it's interesting with the world as it is today, which is the world as it is today.
It is.
You feel like that would be something that would be brought up a lot in conversation, and it really hasn't.
No, exactly. You know, so which is, I think it's good, and I suppose also, you know, the focus of Starfury Invasion this year has kind of, it's been a little bit of Ahsoka, but mainly Andor season 2.
Yeah.
And we are what 5-6 months removed now.
Yeah, I guess we are. Yeah.
So like we can now start to really talk about, I guess, like the legacy of what Andor is as a series and the impact it may have on future Star Wars productions. And just also like the canon, the fandom in general. So it means it's different. You know, we're not trying to push, or they're not trying to promote the show, and it's all about experiential like memories and stuff.
That's a really good point, because we're beyond the Emmys now. Yeah. Which of course it picked up that screenplay Emmy, which is brilliant for Dan Gilroy, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, we're past that now. So the promotional aspect, if you want to call it that, is done. That's past, like you say. And now, as fans, we can look back at Andor completely set in its place in the canon, in sort of Star Wars lore and history, because it was, in every measure, it was a big success. And also that we can, you know, the conversation continues, and it's great because we had all these guests, like Diego was here yesterday on stage with Denise Gough. Yeah. Great fun. Today, I think it's Kyle and Denise and Diego and Elizabeth Dulau. That's it. Yeah. That's it. Elizabeth Dulau and Diego. We're saying these names and it's ridiculous. We are. Yeah. You know, as you say, we're at this relatively small convention, boutique. almost.
I guess you could say that. I mean, I think it's probably a maximum limit of probably about 500 people here.
Yeah.
At the very, very most.
It's a deceptive thing.
It is very,
because we were taking photographs yesterday and posting them onto Fantha socials. And some people were commenting, blimey, it looks empty. Well, the way they run it is very smart. You'll have your guests on stage, and then you'll have other guests who will be doing photo shoots, or other guests who will be doing autograph stuff. So people will be out in the queues. If you've got a gold ticket, which is where the front seats are, a lot of those people will be off doing other stuff. But the beauty of it is that every guest talks Saturday and Sunday. So if you miss the Saturday for whatever reason, you'll catch them on the Sunday. Yeah. And it's really well organised.
And actually, what surprised me, having not been here like last year for last Starfury, was that actually there's very few moderated questions. All the questions come from the audience.
Yes.
And so you get some very, not necessarily weird or interesting questions.
Come on. Now, I need to know your answer to this question. Okay. I've got two questions, actually.
Go on then.
The first question is, what would you rather fight, a 6-foot zombie chicken or 20 tiny chicken-sized zombie chickens? And also, would you rather be a vampire or a werewolf?
So now the latter one,
yes.
That was a great discussion about that in the changing rooms. And depending on your point of view and your perspective, it appears that actually, I suppose if you're a werewolf, at least you kind of get it done once a month. But obviously, if you're a vampire, then you kind of got to live with it for your whole life.
Every day.
So, but it also then depends upon where you invest your time, what kind of vampire are you? You're a Dracula type vampire, you're more kind of like Twilight. So I still have
a sparkly one.
Exactly. So I'm still kind of, I think if being a vampire means I get a castle, then I'm definitely kind of more a vampire.
Cool.
What about
you? For me, I like the werewolf logic. I only have to worry about it when there's a full moon sort of thing. Yeah. Although I just watched season 2 of Wednesday and there's some werewolf stuff in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the vampire thing seems a bit prohibitive because you can't go out in the daytime.
Well, I work in the dark anyway, don't I?
You do,
much,
yeah.
so
and I tend to spend most of my time on a keyboard, to be fair, with the blinds closed. But that's another story. But yeah, I don't know. I think I would say werewolf, but the 6-foot zombie chicken, that's the big one.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that?
So from memory, I've always found when you have this in when you're playing a game, like a massive multiplayer role playing game, and you'd have a giant boss, but then you'd have a little kind of maybe smaller
little
ones.
Minions.
Yeah, the little minions. They're the ones that normally kind of they're the ones that kind of grind you down a little bit, and they tend to kind of forget about them. Yeah. So you're focusing on the big guy, and then it's the little ones that kind of come in, and then you've got a little bit of energy left.
Yeah.
Taking these out. Peck you out. So I would say I'd much prefer to fight the bigger zombie chicken.
You want to take out the 6-foot zombie? These are the questions Star Wars fans want answered. You say?
Yeah, exactly. Well, or some of them anyway. I mean, there were some other ones because there was one actually interesting question from from one lady who asked Denise about whether or not the fact that Deborah Miro was a psychopath came from her acting experience, or was she a psychopath?
Or was that just her?
Just her, yeah, exactly.
And I think the answer was kind of cagey.
Exactly.
I think we could fall between two stools.
And what was interesting with Denise was that she turned it back on her and asked her. So that bit of deflection there.
And also a notable point was that woman who asked the question was never seen again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, where did she go?
That's ISB efficiency.
I believe so. I believe so.
So yeah, but I mean, we joke, but actually there were some very serious, well, not very serious, but very interesting questions about also the experience and that, especially massively about the writing and all that. But also, what was interesting about Denise and Diego said was that was about options. Yeah. So
very interesting point. Yeah.
So when they're kind of shooting these scenes about they like many actors, they give the director options. Yeah. So how they approach a scene or how they read a line is maybe done in 3 or 4 different ways. Yeah. And so thereby in the actual performance is crafted in the edit suite.
Which really not surprised me, but pleased me, because one of the things George he's a pal, George Lucas used to say was, let's get all the coverage done, let's get everything down on film, and then I take it all into the edit suite, and that's where the film comes together. Yeah. And George wasn't mentioned an awful lot yesterday. No need for him to be mentioned, because we're mostly talking about Andor for the most part. But when that particular question was posed, and it was I don't feel like I can get a handle on a Star Wars character in the same way I could on another performance that I do, because I'm acting this scene as confused or angry or disappointed or tentative or whatever, and they might act that scene out 3 or 4 different ways.
Yeah.
And like you say, that you get the editor and the director sitting down at the end going, let's go with that choice. So the actor doesn't really know which version they've gone with.
Exactly, and which then makes it interesting for or surprising for the actor. But actually, then it led on to this point from Diego and Denise, is that actually they don't dwell on it. So they they learn very quickly to not wake up in the next morning and go, oh, I wish I'd done that differently.
That was the crux of the question, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you ever wake up the next morning thinking, can I have another go at that scene again?
Because by and right, I think, and Diego said there was one line where it was like take 5 was his vision, and the audio was from like 17 or something. And so, and that's the thing, is like, now to me, as somebody who edits or has edited, as you know, and everything else that I've done, you know, that's kind of a natural thing, you know. But actually, for some people, that's probably quite surprising to know that, you know, that level of kind of decomposition, shall we say, of a performance actually happens. And
back to zombies,
exactly. And but also, what's interesting is that it happens remotely, shall we say, removed from the actor, and sometimes even the director, because it is the editor who's making that call,
which is very much like Phantom Menace, Cockpit of the Queen Starship. You know, there's Ewan and Liam, and then there's Ralph Brown playing Rick Oley, and it's take 3 of Rick Oley, and it's take 4 of Liam, and it's take 6 of Ewan, and you know, Ben Burt and the team are sort of passing it all together. Yeah,
exactly. He's there on Avid. He's making animats, so he's cutting around people and even retiming people, which, like, at the time blew my mind. Now I can pretty much say that if I do a scripted show, I will probably have plenty of that on my timeline. So there will be like multi layers of shots where you'll have a scene and it is somebody's what we call slipped. So we've just altered the timing of the performance and then cut them out. I put them on maybe against the other person, so that either it times up a little bit better, because sometimes it happens a bit later and something like that, you know. And you do actually see it. Sometimes you see it more actually when they don't do it, and it's more noticeable. Is normally in the reverse, when you get a reaction, somebody's talking over their shoulder, and and the director or the editor's more concerned about the reaction. But the actual audio and kind of like lip sync is out. And it's where they haven't done it. And that to me is more telling than when they have done it, which is interesting.
So there's all these little things. And another thing, excuse me, another thing to say is that this show is not being filmed.
Correct.
It's not being recorded. It's not footage that will turn up on the internet.
The only recorded actual record of this whole event is in fact this podcast.
Yeah, it pretty much is, I would say. In fact, this is why we're doing it in a quiet corner away from everybody else. It's one of those shows that if you want to see these people, and because last year it was Mary Elizabeth Winstead was the lead guest last year. This year it's Diego Luna. The show's back at the end of June next year. They've already announced the next Starfury, which is only sort of 7 or 8 months away already, which is fantastic. Who knows who they'll get then, because we'll probably be on the cusp of Ahsoka by then. We'll quite possibly have Maul Shadow Lord by then. We'll have had the Mandalorian and Grogu by then. So there's 3 major Star Wars things happening between now and the next show, and the next show is only, like I say, sort of June next year. So who knows what guests Sean and the team are going to be able to bring in.
Exactly. I suppose that's the thing, is actually what is quite, I guess, helpful for him is that the all these productions at the moment anyway are happening in the UK. You know, so it's a lot easier to get talent for a weekend and all day.
Who would you want to see? I mean, just sitting in the bar last night, just chatting to folks after we'd eaten, and some people were thinking, hopefully they will focus on Ahsoka guests next year, and others will, hopefully they will focus on animation guests. You know, let's finally get that Rebels crew over. Let's get some of the Clone Wars guys over. What would you like to see?
The animation would be quite interesting, because that would in itself become slightly more. It'll be like more of a celebratory kind of thing, really. But yeah, I mean, I would. We were talking actually last night, and I was like, I wonder, like, with season 2 of Ahsoka, whether or not, you know, we had Hayden in season 1, and I think he's making a return from what, like, the rumours about.
Pretty sure he is.
But it wouldn't be cool if, like, Ewan also had a flashback scene. So there's Ahsoka and Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so then I'm like, well, that would be cool for Starfury Invasion next year, because that would be a big guest. And hell, at that point, well, if you've got Ewan there, you might as well get Mary Elizabeth Winstead over, because they're married, and then, you know, that saves on the price of a room.
And she, by all accounts, she had a great time. So the reputation is sort of starting to proliferate now. It's good to see a show that, I say that, I used to come to Starfury shows in the 90s when they were doing Babylon 5 stuff. So the format and the feel of it, even the location, the ones I used to go to were down in London, but we're here in Birmingham, which is like 25 minutes up the road for me. It's fantastic, but it's very, very similar in tone.
Yeah.
The fact that, but because it's Starfury Invasion, it's a Star Wars thing, which they've never really gone to before. It's just nice to feel like a venerable event or venerable company like Starfury are doing something that feels brand new. And the first one was a great success, and now the second one has stepped up on that.
Yes.
And so you've got to think, well, the third one's going to, fingers crossed, step up on that.
Get bigger, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's the thing, is like, I suppose on some level, the size of it is quite the uniqueness of it. And so like you wouldn't suddenly want to be like Starfury 2027 and it's in N4 of the NEC.
Yeah.
And what's unique and what's nice about it is that actually it's really kind of focused.
Yeah.
So.
You're only ever, yesterday when Natasha Liu Bordizzo and Ivanna Sakhno were sort of the guests, Sakhno were the guests, and Sean came out and said, "Oh, come on, loads of the Gold members people are out getting their autographs and photographs, so just move forward a little bit."
Yeah.
Move forward a little bit, and we all filled the first 5 rows, and it was really cool. So you're sitting there, and you're only 5 rows away from the front, listening to these 2 stars of Ahsoka seasons 1 and 2 talking.
And it's also like really respectful. There doesn't feel like there's any kind of like need to,
no,
like overt security or anything like that. It's really
chilled
out and stuff. And actually, what's also nice, I was in the queue yesterday for Denise Gough for her autograph and that. But you know how it is in some of these other conventions. Like the guy in front has got like 15 or 20 posters or like 15 or 20 flattened Funko Pop boxes, and it's like, well, you're a trader. I didn't see anything like that really.
No.
There might have been a couple of people who had like more than like a couple of items, but it was never kind of like.
And the prices are so reasonable.
Yeah. So that's a big draw. Actually, that's the irony, is that the biggest draw is the fact that Diego Luna's price is like I don't think you could find it cheaper anywhere else.
Not a chance.
So
not a chance.
Which then you start to beg the question about like why how bearing in mind that actually this is a smaller event with a smaller footfall.
Yeah.
And probably his appearance price probably doesn't change from the size of convention.
Yeah.
How comes it's so much more expensive everywhere else?
But I think also reputation has got to come into it, hasn't it? And the other guests, it's known that this company looks after their guests.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have any hassles. It'll run as smooth as clockwork. They'll be taken care of. All that side of it is a pleasure as far as these things go. They've all got to travel. Diego's leaving early today because he's got to be back on set Monday morning for the thing he's doing back on the other side of the Atlantic, I believe.
Yeah.
But Birmingham Airport is 5 minutes that way.
Exactly.
So it's
quite convenient. Yeah.
Very convenient.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds. Bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Andor Season 2 picked up some technical Emmys a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic news, ILM winning and other departments winning. And then we get the great news that it won Best Screenplay for Dan Gilroy. One of the things that Andor has done so well, visually it was phenomenal, production design, the performances goes without saying. They were completely criminally smashed on the kneecaps for not getting any more awards there. I think Forrest Whitaker and Alan Tudyk were the 2 performers that got nominations. But one thing that really has to be said about Andor is just how insanely well written it was. So I think when you look at the play of it, it's beautiful, but not surprising that ILM won, because hard to deny how good that work was. And Luke Hull's work, which of course you spoke to, and more. But the screenplay winning was a big deal. When you look at Andor now, as you just said, we're past it now, quite a few months past it. It's in the rearview mirror. We're already looking down the road now to Ahsoka Season 2 and Mando and Grogu and Maul Shadow Lord and other stuff that's coming. The 50th ain't that far away. Where in the sort of the list of achievements that Andor has put on the table, where would you put the screenwriting? Would you put that pretty much front and centre. It doesn't work without a great story, but the screenwriting isn't just the plot; it's the construction of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on. I think really it's the foundation.
Yeah,
it's the main foundation of everything else that comes from it. If you have a bad screenplay, it doesn't matter how good your effects are. It doesn't matter who you have acting in it. Really, if the story is rubbish. And the screenplay makes it uninteresting, unengaging, and undynamic. Then it's like it's never going to work. And I think that's quite telling. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You forget when we talk about Star Wars, we are kind of talking about 1950s pulp science fiction. That's kind of what it is. And Andor has elevated this massively into something that is way more like considered like proper heavyweight, like prestige drama, than just like a little bit of kind of like Saturday night popcorn film.
That's a word that you've used a few times when you say prestige drama, and I think that's the perfect description for what I think Andor is. One of the things that got mentioned yesterday, just as an aside, was the Ahsoka actors. You got the vibe and the tone and the feel that they were not told not to watch Andor, not told not necessarily to refer to it, but that the Ahsoka tone and aesthetic and vibe is that thing, and the Andor tone and aesthetic and vibe is something else, and they don't necessarily meet in the middle, even though, and we don't know, but even though there's every chance that Genevieve O'Reilly is playing Mon Mothma in Ahsoka Season 2, because she did in Season 1.
Exactly. Now, that will be the interesting thing, because actually... And I think that's quite interesting. Like, if you were to take an episode of Andor and show a man who's been living in the cave and an episode of Ahsoka, and then tell them that is from the same franchise,
the same universe,
I think they would be quite surprised. Is that the same like story universe? Because there's quite different, different tones, different vibes, and that.
Because as you move, you can see. I think you can see, and this actually goes into the original trilogy, and we will get back to the Dan Gilroy thing in a minute. I think you can sort of see the move from Andor to Rogue One to A New Hope, to Empire. Let's say that feels like a fairly steady line, doesn't it? But Jedi always felt very different to Empire. There's that little bit in. To me, there's always been that little bit in Empire. It's when Slave One is following, I'm still allowed to call it that, Slave One is following the Falcon as it heads towards Cloud City. To me, that feels like the turn in the road of that part of the trilogy. Once you get to that sequence, Empire forward feels closer to Jedi to me than it does to the start of A New Hope, let's say. Right? But tonally, Mon Mothma has to traverse all of that. So there's a Jedi era Mon Mothma, and then there's a post-Jedi era Mon Mothma, which is where the Ahsoka stuff lives. So there are sort of pathways through, and tonally, you wouldn't want to make a post-Return of the Jedi show in the style and vibe of Andor, because it just wouldn't fit that era.
Exactly.
Would it?
No, and that's the thing. I think that's quite a good observation. It's kind of, I mean, it is difficult. We had this conversation yesterday about, have you had a chance to watch Rogue One and A New Hope since Andor Season 2? And the guy who asked me was like, because I haven't, but I've heard it's meant to really change how you see A New Hope. And I go, well, it kind of does. But also, but in my mind, I kind of do find it a little bit harder to reconcile, because it's kind of like, but the blessing and the curse of Star Wars is that they've never had a reboot, like a full kind of reset.
Completely.
So therefore, really the linchpin and the reference point is now the 50 years old kind of Star Wars New Hope. And so, you can, if you literally kept on directly referencing that and kept to that tone, things would be a very different world. And so they've had to change it, and so I find, so they did a medal ceremony for basically these two chancellors who just happened to fluke their way into rescuing the princess and blowing up the Death Star. That's not to say that all the sacrifice that went before wasn't discussed or talked about in that hall in Yavin. It just meant that what we saw was actually only precedent to what we needed to see to cap off that story. So kind of again with that kind of logic, then you kind of get to Jedi, and actually I think the two parts that butt up really and I think run quite consistently well between Empire and Jedi is the lightsaber duels. I think the moment Luke steps in front of the Emperor, that kind of feels very much like it fits far closer to Empire than it does the rest of it. but then everything else that's going on is fine. You know? So then you kind of... But then even the tone between Ahsoka and Jedi is a very different tone. And I guess if they were like making a Truce of Bakira, like which is set 2 weeks after like Return of Jedi,
after Andor,
and that then had the same tone as Ahsoka, that wouldn't necessarily work. But because we still got this kind of gap, and we don't quite know what's happening in that gap, in that time period, you can kind of go, well, okay, that's fine. It gives us breathing space to kind of like change how we can perceive stuff.
But don't you think that's one of the beauties of Star Wars, is that you can go from that scene in, and the Tony Gilroy wrote, you know, the Welcome to the Rebellion episode where Mothma was given the speech in the Senate, and then comparatively, you know, not that long further down the timeline, there's Luke, Beru and Owen sitting there having blue milk, having the breakfast at the homestead. And to us as a viewer, it's every bit as important. That moment, it's like, oh, this is Luke expressing his dissatisfaction with his life, and he wants to move on and go and join the Imperial Academy and become a TIE fighter pilot, as I often remind people. When he's looking at the twin sons, he wants to leave and join the Academy. But you juxtapose that against the Mothma scene, the bravery she's showing in his little small, you know, bunkered-in world. That's his act of bravery. I need to get away from this. I need to do something new. And there she is on the grandest scale, saying about the tyranny and the oppression that's threatening the whole galaxy. Two characters that later will be colleagues, essentially.
It's kind of almost subordinate, really, because like Mon Mothma's the leader of a rebellion, and we assume goes on to leave the New Republic on some level. But I mean, that's the thing. Also, you kind of don't get that feeling when you think of that breakfast table scene. That the day after Mon Mothma, or the week after Mon Mothma gave that speech, but they were even aware of it. They sat around and talked about it. You know, the same way as maybe we do with politicians today. Like when we go, did you hear what so and so said yesterday? Kind of don't get that. Like that is on their radar at all, really. You know, like it's like Luke is literally just, you know, he's just bored basically and wants to see the wider galaxy.
That's a great point, because we've got the overview, haven't we? We know what Palpatine's saying and doing, and we know what Mothma's goals are, and but we also know on the smaller level that you know, Luke doesn't want to go and fix those moisture evaporators anymore. He wants to get some droids in so he can go off and see the galaxy himself.
Exactly, and I mean, it kind of goes back to what Shmi Skywalker says, isn't it? Like, you know, the Republic doesn't kind of work out on the Outer Rim, you know.
Oh, so. The amount of people that would even know. Well, I mean, I'm sure I could be wrong. I might be wrong, but I'm going to say Pablo Hidalgo, I'm pretty sure, said that 99% of the galaxy wouldn't even know what a Jedi was. So it would be like a myth and a fairy tale. And there's a tiny fractional amount of people who've ever seen one, let alone encountered one. You know, so when the myth of the Jedi within... You know, we look at it down and go, how can a galaxy have forgotten about the Jedi and the Republic?
But actually think, they're such a small purpose.
They're living out in the bush. They don't know what's going on in the big city.
And exactly, and that's just it. They probably don't know what's going on in the big city. They don't really know, because like they
don't need to know.
No, exactly, because, you know, their local government, you know, takes whatever kind of like imperial edict and then kind of like, I'd say, translates it or kind of fits it to work in, you know, the architecture of like Tatooine. So.
And the propaganda thing of, well, you know, this extra tax we've got to pay now, the extra money you've got to give to the central government, to give to the planetary government, to yada yada yada. It's for our peace and security. Look at what the wonderful Emperor Palpatine is doing for us. This is to protect us from all these enemies we've got. And we look down in it going, what enemies? There aren't any enemies.
No, exactly.
There's only enemies of that system that's an oppressive system. There are no external enemies. So you mentioned in Truce of Bakura, and you move on to like the Yuzhong Vong and all the other stuff that comes in. You know, if and when they ever get to big storylines like that, now that'll be interesting. When the galaxy's got to unite to fight an external threat.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think that is possibly... I think it has to be something that they need to tackle.
And do you think... Because in Ahsoka Season 1 we went to the other galaxy, the next nearest galaxy, Peridia or whatever they end up calling that galaxy, and maybe it feels like maybe something over there has been like, oh, hang on, that's that galaxy over there. Why don't we go and invade those guys? You know, it could be the trigger point for something really big.
Well, this is it, and that's the thing. We don't know. You know, we don't know what they're thinking, actually, what this could ignite. You know, what this could be, and it could be an actual intergalactic war rather than just like a galactic war. That makes it very interesting.
That would be very interesting, very, very interesting. Dan Gilroy wins the Emmy.
Yep.
Brilliant news for Star Wars. Do you think now, as we've just kind of chewed through plots and stories and such, do you think now, because we've got moments in that Mothma speech is the thing that you remember, and I'm so pleased that he gave Genevieve O'Reilly the shout out that she should have got in a gold statue, but she's got with the adoration of the fandom, and I hope she appreciates it. I'm sure she does. But that now you will have an equal measure of snappy action, bantery, Hepburn and that kind of Spencer Tracy banter that Carrie and Harrison had in Empire. That juxtaposed with big, heavy, weighty scenes, it's broadened the scope of Star Wars now, hasn't it?
I think it has definitely broadened the scope of Star Wars. I also think, I would imagine the conversations are going on in behind Lucasfilm's doors as to is Andor the start of a new direction for a franchise, or is it going to be unique in the fact that because of the time period that they're trying to kind of explore and the subject matter of that, is that kind of it's right that kind of weighty kind of drama is there. Yeah. But yes, I'm not quite sure that Sean Levy's Starfighter film is going to be delivering that kind of punches. No. But then nor does it need to, because actually I think for a lot of people, as much as they like Andor and love Andor, they also want, they kind of want
action adventure,
the monsters and the lightsabers and the whizzy bang starfighters and stuff. So, it's got to be a balance, I think.
There's to the Force, yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I think if you I don't know whether we ever will get Tony Gilroy and by extension, his brother's coming back. Let's hope we do. Yeah. Let's really hope we do. But if we don't, then at least, like you say, there's a level of that kind of weighty, mature content that the next guy or gal will have to sort of live or measure to or be measured by, maybe. If they did come back, and we look at the post-Jedi era, with Palpatine out the way and Vader out the way and the Remnant being what it is and all that stuff, there's definitely plot-heavy stuff you could do in there with the political side of it. We've talked on the show before about we'd love to see a Rise of Palpatine series, like a West Wing style through the corridors of power thing. So there's loads of potential. If they wanted to do a weighty, meaty thing.
Absolutely. And is that what, you in your slightly more advanced age as a... sorry, not like
Thank
that.
You for that.
I memeant as a more mature Star Wars fan, is that something that is lights your fire more now than potentially the Spencer Tracy kind of Star Wars?
Yeah, I want both. Yeah, because I'm greedy.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of past the. We talked a lot about it. We have and other folks about. Star Wars always worked well when it was one every 3 years, and so we're way past that now. Yeah, that's we've got to park that and take it as it comes to us, because we've got animation, we've got live action TV and film. No TV after Ahsoka, but you've got to imagine that something's going to come along. So I would love to see some deeper, heavier. There was a great conversation actually in the bar over there last night with a couple of guys, and we were talking about where the Acolyte might have gone. And how that could have progressed, and actually how when you read the Acolyte Visual Dictionary you realise that Plagueis wasn't allied completely with the Stranger. No. He was more of an observer. So then you sort of pass it forward and think, wow, well, okay, maybe season 2 would have been about these two competing rule of two type Sith characters and how they would have clashed, and there would have only been one winner, and we know it would have been Plagueis. And so there was things you could take forward with the Acolyte, and that's kind of, wow, okay, you start thinking that feels like a missed opportunity if that never moved forward. There's storylines there. But yeah, I just as much want to see Starfighter. I don't know what Starfighter is about, but what Ryan Gosling's knows that kind of actor, isn't he? He'll have some snappy stuff. It'll be fun. It feels like a sort of jet-propelled feel to the film. Yeah. Action adventure. He's got the kid in it as well.
Well, that's it, isn't it? So, I think when you kind of have, a kid, you kind of got that, it's meant to be uncle-nephew kind of relationship. Nephew, so, that or father and son. It kind of gives that, you've got two kind of generational kind of perspectives. So, it makes it... it's going to be enjoyable. Yeah. I think, I think you I don't think you could call a film like something like Star Wars Starfighter, and then for it to be kind of super heavy and gravitas and stuff.
But if they throw that in there, because that's kind of part of the whole tone of Star Wars now, it's in the palette. If they want to put something in like that. Yeah. it's not going to feel incongruous now, is it? It's not going to feel like, wow, that's out of place. It's like, oh, okay, that's giving me Andor vibes.
Well, that's it, and that will be the thing. That will be that will be one of those things now. It's like Andor will become part of a kind of vernacular, kind of like descriptive way that we can describe new Star Wars going forward.
Which is the gift of that Emmy win for Dan Gilroy, I guess.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? He's added that to the Star Wars palette.
Exactly, and I think also it's set the bar as well. It's set the bar, but also I think it's good because I think, let's be fair, Star Wars has probably been robbed of more awards than it's won over its time, and for various reasons, political and just like Academy's aversion to kind of like franchise and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's nice, and I think it's a great way to kind of cap off what's been like a fantastic second season and really like a whole series of Star Wars stories.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to cap off this episode because the talks start again very, very shortly. I know you've got stuff to do with the Legion. I'm looking at the bar. You say about raising the bar. I'm looking at the bar, and I fancy a glass of lemonade. So
oh, nice.
That's what I'm going to go and do.
Non-alcoholic as well. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
We will be back next week for another episode of Making Tracks. And, of course, you are most welcome to send in a listener's question, a thought or a theory, as always, or a complaint. And if you want to do that, Mr. Newbold can tell you how you can get in touch.
Exactly, I can, and this is how I can do it without any echo or anything in the background.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fantha Tracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
So is that you done for this episode?
That's me done for this episode.
Excellent. And that's me done for this episode. The sun is shining, and I believe we are going to take the opportunity before the panel start and any actual work needs doing with the Rebel Legion to go and get some photos out by the lake in the MC.
Nice.
Because we've got some troopers, and I think, we figured we'd do some Troopery-type beach shots. Until the next episode of Making Tracks, everybody, you stay safe, take care, support your local independent Star Wars toy stores, and maybe the local independent conventions as well. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.